My first experience here was in 1970. My dad brought me here when I was a little tyke to see the layout, and it was kind of fun. A kid really engrossed in trains and excited about it, and walks into this magical place where the trains are huge and the layout's massive, bigger than a little kid could ever imagine. So it was sort of a neat moment for me. You know, it's been a Toronto tradition now since 1946 to come down to the Model Railroad Club of Toronto.
Growing up in that era were model trains, like when I was younger, you know, I had Lionel and things like that. And I've always kind of been intrigued with it. When my son was first born, I got a Lionel train set for him when he was a year old. He's never played with it since. And then I graduated on to scale trains as opposed to Lionel.
My father was a member. I'd come down with him and they'd stick me on a stool when I was 7 or 8 and say, just sit there. Don't touch anything, but I'd have a great time just watching everything run. So I guess eventually I got the bug, and eventually it made sense to join.
There's 3 different operations. First mode is when we're running it for ourselves and having our fun, and Wednesday evening operating sessions, we run the layout for ourselves. And we're trying to make it run as realistically as possible, at least the way we think railways ran. Second mode is when we have a birthday party. We're just running trains sort of randomly around between the 2 major terminals. And the third mode is when trains are actually run from up here, is during our open house, when there's 250 people around the layout and it's impossible to actually walk with the train with a remote control. So we actually run the trains from the dispatch office, using the signals as the communication system, just like in real life. So there's a great deal of sophistication with that, and it's another part of the model. Actually, it's modeling of a control system to allow us to model the operations of a real railway.
And that, to me, is always the name of the game. You're trying to create something that looks real. It's the whole theatrical aspect of lighting and staging a scene. That certainly has an application in model railroading.
You hear everything's scratch built, where it's from parts materials you can purchase, and then design and build as you see fit to actually fit this particular layout.
We have gradually replaced all the old track in the foreground areas. Now we're looking at other areas in this track at the very back that's 55, 60-year-old technology. So part of this is to make it, as much as we can, bring it up to scratch for modern modeling.
Actually, the whole length of this room is fairly new, and that took like 5, 6, 7 years. That was replacing very old scenery. Started on one end and just kept working and working and working. I've been a member for 30 years, so you could do a lot in that time.
There's lots of members that have really, like in terms of passenger cars and things like that, they're keen on it, and they know what they're doing in terms of the types of cars that they're looking for. And I'm not quite so knowledgeable that way, so I'm kind of just more of an observer and a repairer.
People now, I mean, they never saw a steam engine. You don't know what it is.
Recreating something that existed now quite a few decades ago. So trying to keep the tradition of the railways as they existed in that time, and when railways were the primary form of transportation, and railways were much more part of the social fabric. So we're trying to keep that tradition alive.
There doesn't seem to be much interest from especially teenagers to get into the things. It's sort of a lost hobby. It's a shame, but we've had members here that were 14, 15 when they started back in the 80s. Then and now is a different time to get people involved.
Kids today don't get the exposure to the hobby. There's playing video games, and there's far more distractions and easy things to do than build model trains. So it's a common issue most clubs experience right now, that the average membership age is rising. Birthday parties are a way to bring people here. The open houses, we do 20 birthday parties a year, and each birthday party has 15 to 20 kids. So there's 400 people, 400 little kids that are showing a hobby that wouldn't necessarily see it. So in our small way, we're trying to promote the hobby. But it's sure hard to compete with the Wii or the Xbox. That's a hard thing to compete with these days.
As far as the modeling part goes, just to be able to build something and have it here for hopefully a permanent time for as long as we're here, to be enjoyed by others, and also to simulate something that's very important in our whole planet is the railway industry.
Well, one of the great things I find about model railroading is that everybody has something that they like to do, and so it's never considered work. It's fun.
I guess you can call what I'm doing right now therapeutic too, but a large part of it is social for me. It's more of a social and sort of creative type hobby for me.
I was doing, white collar work, if you will, and it's quite gratifying to actually work on something and then stand back and say, "Look, I've created this. This, works for me."